What is the 10th thing that I would do differently if I were going to college today? I would make a logical college decision instead of an emotional college decision. Hi, I'm Passion Darby, and over the next month, I am going to be bringing to you 31 things that I would do differently if I were going to college today. 31 years ago, almost to date, I was an 18-year-old young woman, and I made the decision that I was going to go to college that fall no matter what. And I did go to college that fall. It was fall of 1993. And now I'm here 31 years later, and I feel that I have amassed a vast amount of information and wisdom that I can share with college goers today. And so that is what I am going to be doing through this channel. So, going back to our topic today, what is the 10th thing that I would do differently? The 10th thing that I would do differently is I would make a logical college decision instead of an emotional college decision. And I am going to tell you why. But before I tell you, I want to make two notes. The first is I am not feeling well. So, if you hear sniffling, a sneeze, or a cough, I ask that you pardon me in advance. I made a commitment to finish this series, and so I'm going to do it no matter what. But I do ask that you pardon me and the fact that I am not feeling well today. The second note is please do consider taking notes. This is going to be a lengthier video than normal because logical college decision making is an art. And it takes time to explain. So I would really want for you to take notes where you deem appropriate, and so that you can walk away with the knowledge and the tips that you want to use in your own college decision making. So let's get started with the topic. To begin with, and as I shared in an earlier video, I attended three historically Black colleges and universities before ultimately graduating from the Clark Atlanta University. So my three colleges were Philander Smith College, now Philander Smith University, which is located in Little Rock, Arkansas. I then transferred to Alabama State University, located in Montgomery, Alabama. After that, I then transferred to Clark Atlanta University, located in Atlanta, Georgia. And that is where I ultimately graduated, as I said earlier. And fortunately, God protects babies and fools. And when I went to college, I was both a baby and a fool. So when I decided as an 18-year-old young woman that I was going to college, I did not know much about the college selection process. I was just desperate to go to college. I had graduated already at 16 years old. So for me, I was sitting in Chicago, Illinois, idle, and I was really upset about that and becoming just disheartened about being in Chicago, and I really wanted to leave and go off. I knew that there was something better for me out in the world, and that I wasn't meant to be in Chicago for the rest of my life. So I was desperate to go to college, and I told myself that it was like go to college or bust. But I am here to tell you that desperation is an emotional state of mind, and that is not the state from which you want to make a big decision like where you are going to attend college. But let's take a step back. This Going back to what I said about God protecting babies and fools, I feel that because I didn't know any better, God placed me in schools where were in colleges where I was still safe. I was surrounded by good people, both my classmates as well as the administrators and the professors, and that I was able to matriculate through undergrad while still keeping my feet on the ground. And that is why I feel that I was protected, despite the fact that I did not know nearly as much as I have been able to teach you all over the last 10 days. So, for instance, with Philander Smith College, the blessing in Philander Smith is that when I arrived at Philander Smith College, a lot of the people that I met, as well as the administrators and well, let me take a step back, including the administrators and the professors shared a lot of my value systems that I was brought up with. So Philander Smith was a dry campus. I was not an alcohol user. Philander Smith required students to go to chapel every week. Now, I was not required to go to church every week at home, but I was required to have some sort of spiritual foundation and to pray every day. And Philander Smith also had a strong um, arts culture. The college choir was famous. The college choir was the epicenter of the campus's culture. The people at Philander that I would meet, the students who were part of the choir, could sing down. They were also very loyal people, very kind people, very smart people. They seemed focused and they were driven and they knew what they wanted to be. Yes, we all did normal college things, but for the most part, the people I met Philander were very solid, and they're still very solid people today. And so that is the blessing in Philander. I actually met people at Philander Smith College who were who have actually turned out to be irreplaceable in my life. So I value Philander Smith for that. And that not only includes my classmates, but again, the professors as well as the administrators. Going on to Alabama State, the blessing in Alabama State was that I learned my gifts at Alabama State. W- When I was a student at Alabama State University, I met professors as well as administrators who told me, Passion, you speak well. Passion, you write well. Passion, you would be good at this. Passion, you are great at this. Passion, you need to run for this office. Passion, you need to be Miss Martin Luther King Hall. Passion, you are beautiful. Stay that way. Passion, your hair is nice. Keep your hair well. They did, they did things like that for me. They always told me my gifts and they made sure to promote my gifts and they taught me ways that I could also leverage my gifts. In fact, my first time being published as a writer was through my history professor at Alabama State University. So that was the blessing in that. And then, as I shared in a video earlier this week with Clark Atlanta University, the blessing in Clark is that I went to Clark because they had my major, but because they also had the equipment and the resources for me to get engaged deeply and to practice my major. So I wanted to be a newscaster. They had the television studio, they had a film studio, they had cameras, they had a radio station, and they had professors who were actually in the field, journalists who were actually on the news, on the local news, and they were teaching there at Clark Atlanta University. So that's the blessing in Clark Atlanta University. So collectively, I feel that I received an exceptional college education through all three of the colleges that I attended, through both the physical resources as well as the human resources. But, and here is the gotcha. If I had not made an emotional decision, and if I was in the mind state to make a logical decision, I would not have attended Philander Smith College, Alabama State University, or Clark Atlanta University. If I was in the mind state to make a logical decision, I actually would have chosen, drum roll, Spelman College. Yes, yes, for Spelman. Shout out to Spelman. Spelman College, located in Atlanta, Georgia, and actually on the same campus as Clark Atlanta University. Now, let me tell you why I would have chosen, or why Spelman College would have been the logical choice for me and not the emotional choice for me. And you know, I always have my notes. So that is the paper you are hearing in the background. So Keep in mind that you should never make a decision, particularly a 4 to 6 year decision, based on an emotional state of mind. And again, when I left for college, I was coming from a very emotional state. I desperately wanted to go to college, and I probably would have done anything to go to college. That is not a good state of mind to make a college decision. So, being the logical person I am now, I can look back in retrospect and let you know why Spelman College would have been the logical choice for me. And I have 11 reasons. Number one, Spelman College at that time was the number one historically Black college in the nation, and it still is today. My mother had already set that precedent for me. I attended through my mother's smart, logical decision making. I had attended the then number one elementary school in Chicago. I then graduated and went to one of the top high schools in Chicago. So it would have been logical for me to continue that trajectory that my mother had already set for me, or that standard that my mother had already set for me, by continuing on to a college that was also the highest rank college at the time. And that would have been Spelman College. Number two, Spelman College is an all girl school, or maybe they may call it an all female school. So I want to make sure I use the right terminology. And if I don't, please pardon me. But that was the context that I was already accustomed to. I grew up with all sisters. I have 3 sisters, and I also have I would call her a non biological sister, but she did spend a lot of time in our home. So I actually consider myself having 4 sisters. But also, when I wasn't with my sisters, or when I even was with my sisters, I was also with my cousins. And my cousins growing up were primarily female. So I grew up around beautiful, stunning, talented, gorgeous, brilliant, smart, creative, fun girls. And I also grew up in an elementary school where my educators were Black women. So that was what I was accustomed to. I was accustomed to being educated and socializing predominantly in all girls circles or all women circles. And those women were Black women, and I enjoyed those circles. So again, for me to have transitioned from that context where I was growing up in Chicago to an all-girl college would have been ideal and logical for me. Number three, Spelman is located at the Atlanta University Center. And as I shared on an earlier video, when I attended college between 1993 and 1998, Atlanta, Georgia was the epicenter of my major, radio, television, film. It was a big deal at that time. And so it would have been logical for me to plant myself at a college located in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I did do that later on. Once I became wiser, I transferred to Clark Atlanta. But if I had made a logical decision from the beginning, from the offset of my decision to go to college, then I would have gone straight to Spelman College and still had access to the Atlanta University Center and Atlanta, Georgia. The number four, while I did grow up around stellar Black girls and women, and that really was the joy of my life, to be honest with you, of my young life, hanging out with my sisters and my cousins, and then going to school and being educated by my wonderful teachers. I also really enjoyed and still enjoy the conversation of brilliant Black men. It's one of my favorite things to sit and talk with brilliant Black men. And that might be because of my dad. The times when my father and I would talk, our conversations were always very intellectual, and I always learned a lot. And so maybe I enjoy talking to brilliant Black men because of my dad. But I because that was something that was important to me, and my actual best friends growing up were two men, two they were boys, not men, but they were two teenagers like myself. I just always enjoyed the company of really creative, artistic, brilliant Black men. But my predominant I guess circle was the Black women I told you about, Black girls and women. Spelman would have allowed me to have that same trajectory where I would have spent my predominant time with all women, but I would have had close proximity and access to the men of Morehouse College, which was important, would have been important to me. And like I said, I do enjoy the company and the conversation of brilliant Black men, and Morehouse College is beaming with that type of Black man. And I really admire Morehouse. And out of the 48 HBCUs that I have toured across the country, Morehouse College is actually my favorite. And that's because it is beaming with brilliant, artistic entrepreneurs, thought leaders, change agents, global travelers, um, ingenious, creative, intellectual Black men. So to have Spelman right across the walkway from Morehouse would have been a good um, proximity for me. The next thing, number 7, is cross registration policies. So remember, I told you in an earlier video that Philander Smith College did not offer my major. So that is why I transferred from Philander Smith College. Otherwise, I would have graduated from Philander Smith because I loved Philander Smith College. But they didn't offer my major. But guess what? Neither does Spelman. But what it does offer is the cross registration policy. So the policy allows Spelmanites to take classes at any of the Atlanta University schools. So I still would have been able to major in mass media arts at Clark Atlanta University as a Spelmanite. So again, that would have been the logical choice for me regarding still trying to pursue my major and going to Spelman College. Number 7, I think I'm on, is institutional loyalty. Now, I have studied orientation practices at many HBCUs, and as I shared earlier this week, orientation week at HBCUs is just life changing in a positive way. But out of the schools that I have studied, I believe that Spelman College, Morehouse College, Howard University, and Hampton University do orientation best. Okay, please don't fight me, people from other schools, but that's just how I feel based on my own research. And what is best about their practice is that it instills institutional loyalty. So that goes back to my value system. Loyalty is very important to me still today, but it was very important to me even then as an 18-year-old young woman. So I appreciate an institution that instills loyalty from the beginning, and I know Spelmanites who are in their 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s, and they are fiercely loyal to Spelman still today. And I believe that that began with the induction process, with the orientation process. And I admire that about Spelman. So since that is important to me, since loyalty is one of my values, that would have been a logical choice for me. The next thing, the African diaspora. My first time meeting a Black person in the United States who was not from the United States was at Spelman. So I did not know prior to meeting that person, or I didn't even, I guess I didn't consider that there were Black people who look like me, or act like me, have the same interests as me, same value systems as me, but they didn't live in the United States. And that really came to my mind when I met this young woman at Spelman. I was a student at Clark Atlanta at the time, and I went over to Spelman. I just walked across the street because it's right across the street, and I walked over to their career center. And I met a 20-something-year-old young woman like myself who was from London, and I was so fascinated by that. And it really made me think, wow, there are people who look like me all around the world, and of course, I've been all around the world myself, so I know that for sure and from my own experience. But the first time I met someone, actually met another Black person from another country, it was at Spelman. So by the time I had gone to college, even to Philander, I had already been out of the country. So obviously that was a value system of mine, right? So it would have been helpful for me to go to a school that also had that value. Speaking of, the next reason why Spelman would have been the logical choice for me is because Spelman has a history of global exchange. So, Spelman has been sending students to study abroad for decades, way before other HBCUs got into that game. And I learned this once I was a student at Clark Atlanta University. But again, I knew when I was a child that I wanted to travel around the world. So the logical choice for me would have been to connect myself with an HBCU that was already pioneering international exchange, global exchange, study abroad opportunities for their students for decades before I even was considering college myself. The next reason why Spelman would have been logical for me is because of their arts and museum culture. They have, I believe, 2 or 3 museums on their campus. And museums and arts are important to me. And they had been important to me since I was a child because my mother was very good about taking me and my sisters to all of the museum and cultural centers in Chicago. So by the time I was 10 years old, I had visited many of them already. So, of course, I should have stayed on that trajectory. Number 10, Spelman is a quaint campus, and I value quaint campuses. I had already attended a quaint elementary school as well as a quaint high school. So it would have made logical sense for me to go on to a quaint college campus as well. And then finally, Spelman has a dry campus policy, meaning alcoholic beverages are not allowed at Spelman College. I have never been a drinker. I've never had an alcoholic beverage in my life. So while there are many other campuses that have dry campus policies, I think Philander Smith had one, like I said earlier, or in an earlier video. But to if I had been making a logical decision, I definitely would have considered, I would have said, wait a minute now, Passion, you don't drink alcohol. And colleges are known for, you can be known, some of them could be known for drinking alcohol and doing other things that are against your value system. Choose a college where dry campus life is part of the culture. So those are 11 reasons why Spelman would have been the logical choice for me, not the emotional choice. So, to wrap up and to recap, as you are preparing to choose a college for yourself to attend, I advise you to consider some of the things that I considered when I was outlining why Spelman would have been a logical choice for me. And if you are like I was at 18 and you're going through some emotional turmoil, you are feeling like going to college is a answer to some challenges you may be having, or you are making a decision from a desperate state, I think that you should do what I wish I would have done, which is to take a step back and say to yourself, wait a minute, what are my values? What are my traditions? And what college can support me in those two things? Because that is how you make a logical decision. You don't even make a logical decision based on your major. That is not a logical decision making process, at least not steps 1 and 2. Step 1 is, what are your values? Step 2 is, what are your traditions? Because those are the two things that you're going to have to hold on to as you matriculate through college. or as you are enrolled in college and you are challenged on your traditions and your trajectories. I'm sorry, and your traditions and your values, as you will be, or as you are in college and some administrator or faculty or even students may try to indoctrinate you to do things their way, and it may go against how you were raised or what you've decided you wanted for your life or your vision for your life or for even just your college career. You will have to lean on your value system and your traditions, not your academic major. That should be third in your decision making process. So, in closing, I do want to say thank you to all of my great colleges: Philander Smith College, now Philander Smith University, Alabama State University, and Clark Atlanta University. And I also want to say a big thank you to Spelman College, because even though I didn't attend Spelman College, every time I've taken my students to Spelman College, they have been kind to my students, and that matters to me. So, thank you to all the great colleges out there. All great colleges can be blessings to students in some way, but having a good college experience starts with us, the actual college student, the actual customer, making a logical college decision. I hope that these strategies helped you. And remember to go to college.